guys, here we are out in the driveway, and I wanted to talk about some basic leash management. Now, leash management is what we use to manage our leash, especially when we are either not training or our dog is too anxious or just unfocused to train. So it is fine to use leash management all the time, as long as it's being effective. It is also fine to use it temporarily, such as when our dog is too distracted, anxious, whatever. If they're not taking treats, they usually default to leash management. So the first part of leash management we're going to talk about is circling. I use circling a lot because I think it is a really good way to just help our dogs lower their anxiety. The technique is from Denise Frenzy, a really awesome trainer who used it. She developed it off of watching horse training. Horses, a lot of times they use a lot of circling to try to just reduce the anxiety of the horse. Horses find it pretty difficult to remain still. A lot of times if a horse remains still, it'll actually increase the anxiety. So when you're working a horse, a lot of times you use a lot of circles to just basically get the energy down in that horse, or get the stress levels down to where that horse can actually work. Well, it's the same with big dogs, especially dogs that tend to have high arousal levels, or just generally high stress levels in general. So if your dog tends to get overexcited or overaroused, this might be a good technique. And what we want to remember about circles is we are never forcing our dog to circle. We are actually just walking our dog into a circle. I use mostly large circles. Small circles can be appropriate in certain situations. But once again, if my dog stopped and refused to circle, it probably is not the proper technique for the situation. But a lot of times I use a series of circles to help prevent my dog from practicing poor behavior, especially when he can't think. Oh, I got some music in the background. There we go. So let's see what this looks like with using some circles, and then we'll try to talk about it more. So Rama's distracted by some barking dogs, and here we go. I'm going to take him and start off with a big circle. So see if you can see him, but I am just actually walking him into a large circle on my own. A lot of times I do kind of put my hand out is just a guide for him, so he knows this is where we're going. Now you notice he paused. I'm not going to force him to circle. Instead of forcing him, I'm actually just going to take a couple steps forward, and then we're going to try to go into a circle again. So let's see how this looks like. We go 1, 2, and then I'm going to actually walk out the circle this way. So you see I got him stuck for a minute there, but just taking a couple of steps forward and then actually walking into a very large circle got him circling again. It got him moving again when he was actually frozen up because there were some barking dogs over in the distance. So that's one way you can use it. Say there was a big distraction, like maybe a person appeared out of the woods from nowhere, or a deer. Their inclination is to bolt. And my inclination would be to actually start walking that circle out so we can just get him moving in a direction if we can. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times it does help. And especially helps bring them down from a high anxiety situation like that so we can start working again. So a person appears, instead of just making them sit still, sometimes I'd be walking them out in circles if they want to. Come on, buddy. So let's see. So once again, what we want to remember is I'm making a large circle, and it's okay to put some slightly pressure on the dog, but we don't actually want to jerk the dog or force them if they don't want to. A lot of times I do put my hand out as kind of a guide, which I do a lot of times when I'm walking anyway. Come on, buddy. It would also be appropriate to tell your dog, if he doesn't know he's supposed to start circling, to just tell him this way and kind of redirect him into the circle again. Once again, if he doesn't want to circle, I would try taking just a couple of steps forward, telling him this way, my hand out, and starting to move into a large circle. A large circle is easier for him to move into because he's not really even noticing that he's starting a circle. We can do that as many times as possible. A lot of times I use that when we start to get to a location. You can even walk in a figure 8 type motion if you want to, as many times as you want. When we get to a new location and he seems anxious, sometimes we will circle like that in a figure of 8 until he seems to be calmer. What do I think of as calm? A lot of times I will just offer him a hand touch. Like, can you touch? Yay! If he can do it, even an easy one where I have it pretty close to his face, I would say he's ready to move on and actually do some training. If he can't do it, which I know he knows that, if he couldn't do it, or if I offered him the treat and he would not take it, my thought would be we probably need to work on some more management with our circles, or maybe some forward backward walking, which we'll look at next, before we really try training, because it's very likely going to fail. So let's try it again here. This is going to be a figure of 8. I'm trying to do it on camera, but I'm just moving him in a figure of 8 here, where I make basically two circles. This way. It's hard to do on video, but basically I was making a little figure of 8. We were just going in two little circles like that. If he got confused and kept moving forward, I would just say this way where we turned. You don't have to, it depends on whether your dog needs to, and a lot of times I do kind of have my hand out just as a guideline for him of where we're going, because he has an easier time just following my hand. Once again, not something you have to do, but it helps him. Another thing that we might see is actually doing a series of circles if something scared him. And it just scared him now. Good. So what you just saw is our neighbor had a large truck that they just peeled off and out of the driveway, so it scared him. What I did there, if you could see it, is I just started circling. It actually did manage him to redirect, and then he just did a hand touch. So it tells me, okay, we're ready to work again. He's cool. That was a little bit of a scary situation, but he's over it. He was able to circle it out, which is awesome. And then once again, he's ready to work again. So one more thing I'm going to show you is, say a person or deer or something scary appears and we need to continue moving, but his inclination is to pull. A lot of times I use almost a spiral circle away from the thing until we can stop while we continue moving away. I'm going to show you what that looks like if I can. Come here, buddy. This way, bud. This way. This way. Middle. Yay! Okay, so apparently our driveway tonight is just a hot zone, so it's kind of good to show you. We got some people across the street. It looks like there's a little party going on. A bunch of cars showing up. We got a dog across the street. We got a dog back there barking. So it's actually good because you're seeing him a little bit distracted, where we just use this circle to spiral down the driveway. Say I needed to get to the car, I would just have continued. And then a couple of times he froze up. I just took couple steps forward, and then we started a circle again. If we needed to change directions, that's fine. And if he doesn't really know to change directions, I would just say this way and use my little hand to show him which way we're going around. Then at the end, I asked for a middle, and he did it, which means, okay, we're refocused again. We can go ahead and move on to another exercise. So that is kind of how you can use our circling technique to help reduce some anxiety and help manage your dog when they may not be able to train or when you might see a distraction present. I hope that made sense, because I use it all the time and it really does help him, and it's a great way to manage him when training just is not going to be the best option. Because once again, the more we practice that poor behavior or undesirable behavior, the more he's going to do it. So if we can redirect that by something with using management, even though it's not training, it's going to prevent him from practicing that behavior and make it easier for us to work with our training in the future, even on the same walk, because once again, once he's refocused, we can go ahead and start walking again and maybe use some of our other training techniques. Okay, though, that is our circle technique. Once again, it's by Denise Frenzy, a really awesome trainer from Frenzy Dog Sports Academy, and it is just a great technique that I really love. Thanks, guys.